Rain fell heavily on the small town that night. The streets were quiet, only the sound of water hitting the ground and the dull glow of street lights breaking the darkness. Inside a little diner at the corner, Emma wiped the counter for what felt like the 100th time. Her hands were tired, her back ached, and her eyes felt heavy. She had been working since morning, and it was almost midnight. The diner was nearly empty now. Just one couple sat in the corner, whispering over their coffee. Emma sighed, ready to close up. That's when the door opened, and a cold breeze rushed in. A man walked inside, soaked from the rain. His coat was old, his shoes muddy. He looked like someone who had lost everything but still carried the weight of pride on his shoulders. He walked slowly to the farthest table and sat down, not saying a word. Emma grabbed her notepad and forced a tired smile. "Good evening, sir. What would you like to have?" she asked gently. The man looked up. His eyes were dark, full of sadness and exhaustion. "Just coffee," he said softly. "And maybe a sandwich." Emma nodded and walked to the counter. The cook had already gone home, so she made the sandwich herself. As she worked, she couldn't help glancing at the man. Something about him felt different. He didn't look like a regular customer. His hands trembled slightly as he rubbed them together for warmth. His gaze was distant, lost somewhere far away. When she brought his food, he whispered, "Thank you," barely meeting her eyes. He ate slowly, like someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days. Emma turned away, pretending not to notice. When it was time to pay, the man checked his pockets, first his jacket, then his pants. His face changed. He looked embarrassed. I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I think I left my wallet somewhere." Emma froze. The owner of the diner was strict about payments. He would cut the amount from her salary if she covered anyone's meal. She looked at the man, tired, wet, ashamed, and something inside her heart ached. "It's okay," she said softly. "Don't worry about it." The man looked shocked. "No, I can't." But Emma smiled. "It's just one meal. Consider it my treat." He looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to understand why she would help a stranger. Then, slowly, his eyes softened. "Thank you," he said again, this time with more feeling. "You have no idea how much this means to me." She shrugged and went back to cleaning the tables. By the time she turned around again, he was gone. The only thing left on the table was his empty coffee cup and a small folded piece of paper under it. Curious, Emma picked it up. The handwriting was neat, but the message was short. "Someday, I'll return this kindness." She smiled faintly, not taking it seriously. People said things like that all the time. Still, she folded the note and kept it in her apron pocket. Maybe it would be a small reminder that not everyone in the world was ungrateful. The next few days passed like any other. The diner filled with laughter during the mornings and silence at night. Emma continued to work hard, saving every dollar she could. But things weren't easy. Her rent was due, her mother was sick, and her dream of opening a bakery felt further away than ever. One night, as she was closing the diner, her manager came in. "Emma, you need to be faster. Customers have been complaining," he said sharply. "I'm sorry," she replied quietly. "I'll do better." He nodded and left without another word. Emma sat down at one of the tables and buried her face in her hands. The folded note slipped out of her pocket. She opened it again and read the same words. "Someday, I'll return this kindness." She smiled bitterly. "Yeah, right," she whispered. Outside, thunder roared again. The rain started pouring just like the night she met that stranger. She stood up, ready to lock the door, when a black car stopped outside the diner. The headlights flashed through the glass, making her squint. The door opened slowly. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, tall, confident, carrying an umbrella. He looked around as if searching for someone. His eyes fell on Emma for a brief second, but he didn't speak. "Sorry, sir," she said quickly. "We're closed." He nodded politely. "Of course. I'm just looking for someone." Something about his voice made her pause. It was calm, deep, but strangely familiar. Before she could ask who he was looking for, he smiled faintly and turned to leave. As the door closed behind him, Emma felt a strange chill. She couldn't explain why, but something told her this wasn't the last time she'd see that man. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside the diner, the air felt heavy as if an unseen war had just begun, not with weapons, but with fate. And Emma, without knowing it, had already taken the first step into a battle that would change her life forever. The next morning, the storm was gone, but Emma's thoughts were still cloudy. She couldn't stop thinking about the man in the dark suit who came to the diner the night before. His voice, his eyes, there was something familiar about him. But she couldn't place where she had seen him before. Maybe it was just her tired mind playing tricks again. She brushed the thought away, tied her apron, and started another long day at the diner. The breakfast rush began. The sound of plates, laughter, and orders filled the air. Emma moved from table to table, smiling even though her feet ached. She had learned long ago that in her world, smiles were part of survival. But deep inside, she was struggling. Her rent was late again, her mother's health was getting worse, and she was skipping meals to save money. Every night she looked at the small piece of paper, "Someday, I'll return this kindness," and wondered if kindness ever really came back. That afternoon, her friend and co-worker Lily noticed her staring at the note again. "Still thinking about that mystery man?" Lily teased with a grin. Emma laughed weakly. "No, not really. I just wonder if he's okay." "Girl, you need to stop thinking about random strangers and start thinking about yourself," Lily said, patting her shoulder. "You've done enough saving for one lifetime." Emma smiled, but her mind didn't agree. Something in her heart said that man hadn't disappeared for good. The day passed slowly, and by evening, the diner was almost empty. The lights flickered softly, and the smell of coffee hung in the air. Emma sat by the window, watching cars pass by in the rain. That's when she saw a familiar car stop outside, the same black one from last night. Her heart skipped a beat. The door opened, and two men in suits walked in. They looked out of place in her small-town diner, clean, confident, with sharp eyes that noticed everything. Emma straightened her uniform and walked over with a polite smile. "Good evening, gentlemen. What can I get for you?" One of them, tall and serious, looked at her name tag. Emma. Right. She froze for a second. "Yes, that's me. Have we met before?" The man smiled slightly. "Not exactly. But someone mentioned your name." Emma frowned, confused. "Who?" Before he could answer, the second man leaned forward and whispered something. The first one nodded and said, "Never mind. Just coffee for both of us." Emma went to prepare their order, her mind racing. Who could have mentioned her name? When she brought the coffee, the tall man spoke again. "You've been working here long?" "Almost 3 years," she replied carefully. "Why do you ask?" He shrugged casually. "Just curious. You seem kind. The world needs more people like you." She gave a small smile, trying to hide her unease. "Thank you, sir." The men finished their coffee, paid in cash, and left without another word. But when Emma went to clear their table, she found another small folded paper exactly like the one she had received from the stranger before. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The note said only 4 words. "He never forgot you." Her breath caught. Who was he? Was it the same man she helped months ago? How did these strangers know about that night? Emma's heart raced as she looked out the window, but the black car was already gone. Later that night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat by her small window, staring at the lights outside, holding both notes in her hands. The first one promised a return of kindness. The second one spoke of memory, someone who hadn't forgotten her. But why now? Why after so long? The next morning, she came to work early. She cleaned the tables, made coffee, and waited for anything to happen. Hours passed, but no one unusual came in. Around noon, the diner door opened again. A delivery boy walked in carrying a white envelope. "Delivery for Miss Emma," he said. Emma blinked. "For me? Who's it from?" He shrugged. "No name, ma'am. Just said to give this to you." She took it carefully, her hands shaking a little. Inside was a letter typed neatly on fine paper. "Dear Emma. I told you once that someday I would return your kindness. That day is closer than you think. For now, please don't be afraid. Sometimes life prepares you for blessings by testing your patience. Keep believing in good. I never forgot what you did for me. D." Emma read the letter again and again. The signature, just the letter D, gave her chills. Could it be the same man from that rainy night? Lily came up behind her. "What's that?" Emma quickly folded the letter. "Nothing. Just something strange." But inside, her heart was pounding. Whoever this D was, he knew her name, her kindness, and somehow her life. For the first time in years, Emma didn't feel invisible. Someone out there remembered her. Someone powerful, maybe even dangerous. And she had no idea that this small note was the beginning of something much bigger, something that would turn her quiet world into a storm again. Outside the diner, across the street, the man in the black suit watched her through the window. He smiled faintly and whispered to himself, "It's almost time." A week had passed since Emma received the mysterious letter signed only with the letter D. Her life at the diner continued as usual, but something inside her had changed. Every time the door opened, her heart jumped. Every shadow seemed like a possibility. And every customer seemed like he could be him. But no one appeared, until that evening. The diner was quieter than usual. Most of the regulars had gone home, leaving only a few scattered tables. Emma was wiping the counter when the door opened, and she heard the familiar sound of rain hitting the glass. She froze. A man stepped inside. His coat was dark, his shoes polished, and his hair slightly damp from the rain. He looked around slowly, scanning the room. When his eyes landed on Emma, he smiled faintly, a smile that made her heart skip a beat. "Emma," he said softly. She blinked, unsure if she had imagined it. "Yes." He took a slow step closer. "It's been a while, hasn't it?" The voice was calm, confident, and yet filled with something deep, something that made her feel both nervous and safe. Emma's mind raced. Could it really be him? The stranger from that rainy night, the man who left the note? He removed his coat and hung it on a chair, then extended his hand. "I'm Daniel Carter," he said. "We met, some time ago." Emma's eyes widened. "Daniel?" "Yes," he said gently. "You may not remember me very clearly. But I remember you. Very clearly." She remembered him, of course. How could she forget the man who looked so lost, sitting quietly at her table, embarrassed that he couldn't pay for his meal? She remembered paying for him, and she remembered the note he left. She never imagined she would see him again. I don't understand," Emma said quietly. Daniel smiled. "You helped me on a night when I had lost everything. I was about to give up on my dreams, on my life. But your kindness, it gave me hope. That night, you reminded me that there was still good in the world. And because of you, I kept going. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she held her apron. She had never thought that one small act could have such an impact. Daniel continued, I promised myself that one day, I would return the kindness you showed me. Not just in words, but in a way that could actually make a difference in your life. Emma's eyes widened. I don't need anything. I was just helping. I know, Daniel said, his voice soft but firm. And that's exactly why I want to help you now. I want to give you an opportunity. A chance to do what you love. Emma frowned, confused. What do you mean? Daniel took a deep breath. I run a small company, a cafe project. We're opening new branches in different cities, and we need someone with creativity, passion, and heart to manage one of them. Someone who understands people, who knows kindness, who can make the cafe more than just a place to eat, someone like you. Emma blinked, speechless. Her life had been a constant struggle. Bills piled up, her mother was sick, and her dream of opening a bakery seemed impossible. And now, this stranger, this man who she had helped once, was offering her an opportunity she never thought possible. I don't know what to say, she murmured. You don't have to say anything yet, Daniel replied. Just think about it. I know it's sudden. I know it seems too good to be true. But I promise, Emma, this is real. I want you to have a second chance at your dreams. For a moment, the diner was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional drop of rain hitting the windows. Emma felt a mixture of emotions: disbelief, hope, fear, and excitement all at once. She looked at him and asked quietly, why me? There are so many people who could do this job. Why choose me? Daniel smiled, leaning slightly on the counter. Because you didn't help me for recognition. You didn't help me because you wanted something in return. You helped because it was who you are. That's rare, Emma. That's why I chose you. And that's why I'll never forget you. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had spent years struggling, wondering if kindness mattered, if life was fair, if anyone noticed her efforts. And now, this man, this stranger who had become her unexpected connection to hope, was telling her that it did. I need time to think, Emma said softly. Of course, Daniel said gently. Take all the time you need. I'll be around. And I hope you'll say yes. As he turned to leave, he handed her a small card with his number and the cafe project details. Call me when you're ready, he said. Emma watched him leave, feeling a strange mix of fear and excitement. She held the card tightly, realizing that her life, the life she thought would always be a series of struggles, was about to change forever. For the first time in years, she felt hope. Real, tangible hope. And somewhere in the city, Daniel smiled to himself. The kindness she had shown had created a connection neither of them could have predicted, a connection that would grow into something more powerful than either of them imagined. That night, Emma sat by her window, the card in her hand. She looked at the rain-soaked streets below and whispered, almost to herself. Maybe, life is finally giving me a second chance. The next morning, Emma woke with a mix of excitement and nerves. The card Daniel had left her sat on the table beside her bed, glowing softly under the sunlight. She ran her fingers over it, imagining what her life could become if she said yes. Her heart raced, but a small voice of doubt whispered, what if it's too good to be true? After a long pause, she finally made her decision. She would meet Daniel and see what this opportunity was all about. She couldn't let fear hold her back anymore. Not after all she had been through. Emma arrived at the new cafe location, a modern yet cozy place with large windows and warm lights. The smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air, making her heart swell. Daniel was already there, reviewing plans with a team of employees. When he saw her, His face lit up with a smile that made her nervous all over again. "Emma. You came," he said warmly. Yes," she stammered. "I want to try." "Good," Daniel said, handing her a folder. "This is everything you'll need to get started: menus, staff lists, schedules. We'll work together. You have ideas, creativity, and the heart for this. I just need you to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you." Emma nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she opened the folder. She had never felt this kind of support before, someone actually trusting her with something so important. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma learned the ropes of the cafe business, managing staff, understanding customers, arranging the displays, even testing new recipes. Daniel was patient, guiding her without taking over, letting her ideas shine. During quiet moments, they would talk. Not just about work, but about life, dreams, and failures. Daniel shared stories of the struggles he had faced when he lost his business years ago. Emma talked about her mother, her own dreams of opening a bakery, and the long days she had spent working at the diner. They laughed together, sometimes shared long silences, and slowly, a subtle connection began to grow between them. Emma found herself looking forward to these moments, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years. But not everything was easy. One afternoon, as Emma was arranging the display, she overheard some employees whispering. "Did you see Daniel? He only hired her because he feels sorry for her," one said. "Yeah, she didn't do anything special. She's just lucky," another added. Emma's heart sank. She clenched her hands, trying to push away the hurt. She had worked hard all her life, fought for every little thing, and now people were saying her success was just because of pity. Without telling Daniel, she quietly packed her things that evening and left the cafe. She didn't even say goodbye. The streets were dark and empty as she walked, her tears hidden by the night. "Maybe they're right," she whispered to herself. "Maybe I don't deserve this." Daniel returned to the cafe the next morning and immediately noticed her absence. He found her note on the counter, a short resignation, polite but final. Panic rose in his chest. He knew Emma's strength, her spirit, and her dreams. He couldn't let her give up so easily. He drove through the rain, remembering that very first night when they met at the diner. The memory of her kindness flashed before his eyes, reminding him why he had sought her out in the first place. Finally, he found her sitting on the same bench outside the small diner where they had first met. Rain dripped from her hair, but she didn't care. She hugged her knees, lost in thought. "Emma." Daniel called softly as he approached. She looked up, startled. "Daniel. I. I just." He knelt beside her, gently taking her hand. "Emma, please don't leave. You didn't come this far to give up now. I know it's hard, and I know people can be cruel, but this isn't about them. This is about you. Your dreams, your heart, your talent. You've earned this everything not because of pity, but because of who you are." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "But they don't understand. They think." "I don't care what they think," Daniel interrupted firmly. "I only care about what I know. And I know the truth, Emma. I know your strength. I know your kindness. And I know that one day, this cafe, your cafe, will be something amazing. Don't give up now." Her heart raced as she looked into his eyes. There was no pity there, only respect, admiration, and something more, something she hadn't been ready to feel before. Finally, she nodded slowly. I. I'll stay. I'll try." Daniel smiled, relief and warmth spreading across his face. "Good. That's all I needed to hear. Together, we'll make this place special, not just for customers, but for you too." That night, as the cafe closed and the lights dimmed, Emma stood by the window, looking out at the city. Daniel came up beside her, offering a small cup of coffee. "You know," he said softly, "it's funny. The night we first met, I never imagined it would lead to this. But now, I can't imagine it any other way." Emma smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Neither can I." For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere that valued her, trusted her, and believed in her. And somewhere deep inside, she realized that maybe the second chance wasn't just about the cafe. Maybe it was also about love, hope, and the future she had always dreamed of. The days passed quickly, and Emma's world was changing. The cafe, once just a dream, was now alive with customers, laughter, and the rich aroma of fresh coffee and baked bread. Emma poured her heart into every detail, from the menu to the decorations, even down to greeting every customer with a warm smile. Daniel watched her quietly, amazed at her dedication. Every step she took seemed to breathe life into the cafe. But it wasn't just the cafe that had changed. Daniel noticed a change in Emma herself. She was more confident, stronger, and more alive than ever before. One evening, after the cafe had closed and the lights dimmed, Emma stayed behind to organize supplies. Daniel walked over, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You know," he said softly, handing her one, "I've been thinking about that night, the night we first met. You had no idea how much a small act of kindness could change a life." Emma smiled faintly, looking down at her coffee. "I didn't do it for that. I just wanted to help." Daniel shook his head. "And that's why it mattered. You didn't expect anything in return. And now, look where we are. This cafe, your success, everything, it all began because of you." She felt her chest tighten. It's hard to believe that one night could change so much. Daniel reached out, gently taking her hand. "It's not hard to believe. It's the truth. And I'm here to make sure you see that your kindness is never wasted." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She had struggled for years, faced endless obstacles, and yet here she was standing in a place that felt like home, with someone who believed in her more than anyone ever had. But life wasn't finished testing them. One afternoon, a group of investors came to visit the cafe, interested in expanding it to more cities. Emma worked tirelessly, presenting her ideas, managing the staff, and making the place shine. The investors were impressed, especially by her creativity and attention to detail. After they left, Daniel pulled her aside. "Emma, you did amazing today. I knew you could do it, but seeing it, it's incredible." Emma smiled, exhausted but happy. "I couldn't have done it without your support. You believed in me when I doubted myself." Daniel looked at her, his expression softening. "And I always will. Because you're not just talented, you're kind, brave, and incredible. And I can't imagine my life without you in it." Emma felt her heart race. For months, they had worked together, laughed together, and shared dreams. Now, in this quiet moment, she realized what had been growing between them all along, something deeper than friendship, something real. That night, after the cafe had closed, Daniel led Emma outside. The streets were quiet, lit by the glow of street lights reflecting on the wet pavement. He stopped, turned to her, and held her hands in his. "Emma," he said softly, "do you remember the first night we met?" She nodded, tears threatening to fall. "Of course. How could I forget? I was lost, ready to give up on everything," he said. "And then you showed me kindness. You saved me in a way you can't even imagine. And now, I want to return that kindness. Not with money, not with gifts, but with my life. I want to share it with you." Emma's eyes widened. "Daniel." He smiled, taking a small box from his pocket. Inside was a delicate ring, simple but beautiful. "Emma, will you be with me? Will you let me be part of your life, as you have been part of mine?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. Yes, yes, Daniel. I will. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced under the soft glow of the streetlights, the rain from the night before now replaced by a gentle, peaceful drizzle. The next morning, the cafe was brighter than ever. A small sign had been added above the entrance. Emma's Place, where kindness begins again. Emma stood beside Daniel, looking at the first customers walk in. She felt a sense of fulfillment she had never known, not just in achieving her dreams, but in finding someone who valued her heart, her strength, and her kindness. Daniel smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. See? This is just the beginning. Emma leaned into him, her heart full. Yes, the beginning of everything. Somewhere in the city, the memory of that rainy night lingered, the night when a simple act of kindness had changed two lives forever. And in that small cafe, filled with laughter, warmth, and the smell of fresh bread, Emma realized the truth of what she had always believed. Kindness never goes unnoticed. Love always finds its way. And every act of good can echo for a lifetime. The cafe doors opened again, welcoming more customers, and Emma smiled, knowing that the promise of that first act of kindness had finally been fulfilled.